6, these are the learning outcomes of this module. We'll be constructing and manipulating list, a new data structure using square bracket syntax and the list function constructor. We'll analyze and implement list traversal using different types of loops. Compare and apply list comprehensions versus traditional loop-based approaches. Then we'll evaluate and apply built-in functions that are used in list data. So in the list, there are like various types of data, but whenever we have a numerical data, then we can use those built-in functions. We'll differentiate and justify the appropriate use of append and extend when modifying the list. Analyze and manipulate the list element using indexing, slicing, nested indexing for two-dimensional list, while diagnosing and correcting the common indexing errors. So those are the learning outcomes of this module. What you need to do for this module, you need to understand the project 3 requirement is because the project is due next week. I already have posted the exam 1 review video. I need to take the exam by the deadline I mentioned there, February 11th, I guess. What we'll do, we will implementing different types of list methods, functions for list of numbers. We will iterate the list with or without indexing, accessing the list, generating list from the scratch, then two-dimensional list, and the command line parameters at the very end. Okay, what is a list? A list is a list, right? Basically, a collection of data. So previously, what we have used different variables like integer variables, float variables, string variables, right? A variable contains only one data, but now we have a collection of data. That's why it's like a data structure. So list is a well-known data structure, and it is also a sequence. What does that mean by a sequence? Have we used sequence before? Where? In a string, right? String is a sequence of characters, right? That means we can start from the beginning and sequentially we can go through till the end of the string. Similarly, in the list is a sequence of data. That means we can iterate the data. And it can store heterogeneous data. What does that mean by the heterogeneous? The data can be different types. That means we can add integer, float, string. What are the data types? Boolean. So we can add those data types all together. Those are like heterogeneous data, but not necessarily we need to use the heterogeneous data storage. We can use homogeneous data, like similar type of data, right? Okay. Why for the heterogeneous data? Sometimes we need to collect different types of data. For example, like student name and student ID. Student ID is like numerical data, but name is string data. Grade can be a numerical data. Is present or not may be a Boolean data. So we can add various data inside one data structure, like a student. Yes.
Is it possible to store a list in a list?
Yes, that is the nested list. But I'll be discussing those things next class. So that's why I mentioned here, like we'll go through the two-dimensional list or the tabular view of a list. We'll go through there later. Okay, not this one. What I'd like to go through, how we can write a list. Let me go through a notepad. I have like different data, like for example, this is the student, not me. Maybe John Doe is a student name. And this is his ID. Just put random. Then grade can be 94.5. Letter grade can be A. Course can be like CS1400. Then there might be a variable like is graduated or will be graduated this year. yes or no type of things. Yes, graduate. So these are the data for one particular student. Now in a list, can we collect, like, gather all of those data together? Yes, we can. How we can do that? Well, the syntax is a square bracket, and each of the items should be separated by comma. Well, typically in English, when you write a comma, we put a space after the comma, but here there's no space. If you put in a space after the comma, then the space will be a part of the next item. That means for this item, it is space 94. Okay, so avoid the space. But here I put in space because it's a string, the whole string. So from here to here is a string. So as a string, we need to use this one, right? That means it's a string. This one is a numeric data. 94.5 is a numeric, but a float type of data. A is a string. CS1400 is a string. Yes or no is a Boolean, right? We could either write yes as a string, or we could write 1, 0. 1 for true or yes, 0 for false. Or I can write true. That makes more sense. Right? So these are the collection of data. I already have created a list with all of those data. So since it is a list, I need to assign that list to some variable, right? Like what we have done before as an integer variable or float variable or string variable. So I'm writing like student info is a variable, but I put everything together. So this is my list. My list name is student info, and the list items are those. Now the question is, can I access those items? How many items we have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So there are like 6 items. Can we access those items? There's, as I told you, list is a sequence of data. Can be a homogeneous data, can be a or a heterogeneous data, right? So since it's a sequence, I can easily iterate, just like a string. In a string is a sequence of character, right? So if I'm comparing a list with a string, so maybe the name. So this is a string. It's a sequence of character. And this is a list. It's a sequence of data. Here, we don't need to put a comma to make sure that this is the first item, this is the second item. But in a list, we need to put a comma so that we can easily identify this is the first item, this is the second item, so on and so forth. Both are sequence, right? Now, how I can access a sequence? By its index, right? And the index always start from 1. Always start from 0. But typically when we count from 1. But in computer science, most of the programming languages, they are using index counting from 0. That means this is the 0 index item, this is the 1 index item, this is the 2 index item, 3, 4, and 5th index item. But there are like 6 items, similar to the string. We have 6 items, but the index starts from 0 up to the length minus 1. Okay. Similarly, how we can get the length of a string? Using the what function? Len function, right? Len, len function. With the len function, if we put like len and the name, it will return the length of the string. If we put the student info here, What do you think? What it will return? Or error? Will it return any value or it will throw an error? Anyone? Kevin? What do you think? Error?
I think it might return. It might return something, but
Not the error,
not
right?
an error.
Okay. Yes.
It should return 6.
Yeah.
We have 6 different values.
It should return 6 is because the length function returns the length of a data structure, but we're not sure whether the length function can work with a list. Let me try. Whenever you're not sure, try it here. So I'm just copying this code from here. So for the John Doe, like the name, not the John Doe, the name. What is this actually? Print, inside the print, there's a len. What does it call? I just covered these things in the last class. I'm calling len function inside a print function.
The function.
Nested function. What else? Very close. Anyone? Compound function. Very, very close.
Compounding.
Compounding. Mostly. But the exact wording. It's a function composition, right? The same nested, composing, compounding, the same wording, but the exact wording is like function composition, right? So I'm calling a function within a function. That means this len function returns something, and I'm putting that information to the print function so that that will print. So it is well known. I can get the length of the name variable. It will print 8. There are like 8 characters, but I'm not sure whether the list can be passed in a len function. If it is okay, it will return 6. Otherwise, it will return an error. So it's returning 6. That means, yes, we can use a list data structure inside a len function. So far, we can use list data structure and a string inside a len function. Later, we'll see what else we can add inside a len function. Okay, now we have our length. How we can access an item from a list? We need to iterate it, right? What are the common ways to iterate? Looping, right? What kind of loop we can use here? For loop. So if we can use a for loop, we can easily use the while loop, right? We can easily convert a for loop to while loop. And as I told you, you can use 2 ways to iterate in a for loop. One way is through its index, another way is without indexing, using an in operator, right? So let's try with the in operator first. So for, those are the item in student info. This is like in operator without indexing. And let's see if we have the information. Yes, we have those information. That means this is the very first way without indexing. Now with indexing, as I told you, index starts from 0 and there are like 6 items. So we have 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? In this particular case, but it can vary. How do you know that how many items are there? The len function, right? With the len function, we know that there are that many items. There are like 6 items. And how we can iterate? from 0 to items minus 1, right? So we can create a range. So for not I is very traditional. So I can write index in the range of items. Items means like there are like how many items? 6 items. So what you can do, we can just copy the whole thing and just replace with the items. Again, we're calling a range function. Inside the range function, there is a len function. Still, we're using a function composition here. You can write both ways, depending on your expertise. You can write a function composition or just find the length and then use the length in the range function. So now we have the index. So the index starts from 0 to all the way to the 5, right? But from the index, how I can access an item? Well, similar to the string accessing, we can access an item by its index with a square bracket. Let me hide everything. Let's see if it can print those items. The student info 0, that means I am going to access the very first index. It shows the first index. That means I can easily access an item through its index using the square bracket. Now I can use this syntax. So I have those indices. Index start from 0 to all the way to the length, but the range function never goes to the last one. It goes up to the last one, right? Last one minus 1. That means the range function starts from 0 and it goes up to 5, not 6. So we have a list of indices 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, one at a time. And then I'm going to access those indices. Student info first 0, then it will change to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then done. So John Doe is printing from here. That's why you can see multiple John Doe. So this is the second way, with indexing. The first one was without indexing, and the second one is with indexing. Now you can easily convert a for loop to a while loop, right? So here's my for loop. How I can convert this for loop to a while loop? Anyone?
Use a counter.
Counter. Start from 0, right? Then let me call by the name. Hey, help me to write the code. So how I can convert a for loop to a while loop? I have a counter, then
Counter is less than student, the length of the student info.
can you repeat that? Okay, good. What? While the counter is less than the length of the info, like this code, right? So the good thing is like they have their auto suggestion, autocomplete, it just give you the whole code. Don't use this one so that you don't understand what's going on there. But yeah, the counter starts from 0 as we have started the index. And then how long I need to rotate the counter? Until the length of this list. So is less than means like start from 0, ends on 5, not the 6. If it is less than equal or start from 1, then it will count. The count start from 0, 1, not 0, 1, and ends on 6. Right? That's the different logic. Or what you can do, you can just use is less than equal and then len minus 1 so that you know there are like that many indices. I have the index 0 to 5. So I don't worry about the 6. So what I'm going to do, index 0, if it is until 5, I'm printing it. If it is going beyond the 5, I just kill it. Okay. Any question? So this is the index, accessing a list through its index and how you can iterate not the string, iterate a list with indexing and without indexing. Does that make sense? Okay. So the third one is, how can we slice a string? Not the string, list. Sorry for that. So the first thing is, can we slice a string? Yes, we can. How we have sliced a string? How we have sliced a string? Probably you have read those things for the exam, right? But you're not answering. How you have sliced the string? Michelle? Any hints? Cooper?
Isn't it dot split?
Dot split. So dot split is the function, but it will give a different things. But yeah, probably that can help, but I'm just asking, can we slice a string?
Do the square brackets and you do the starting index, colon, and then the ending index, which is not inclusive.
Yes, the colon, before the colon, it's like a starting index, which is inclusive, but the ending is not. Those are the indices, right? So if I'm putting 1 to 6, it will slice from index 1 to 5. What if I don't have any ending index there? Until the end of the string, until the end of the sequence, right? What if I don't have anything in the start? Begins from 0, right? So if I have nothing here, that means starting from 0, ending to end. But there is a good thing here. If you're putting more than the string length, you have an error. Like here's like 1 to 100. I know there's no 100 characters here. Do you have an error? Starting from 1, ending to 99, right? But there is no 99 index. Probably not more than 8 or 7. They're like 8 characters, so far it called. So after the 7th character, do you have an error? How many of you yes and no? Error yes? No? No error? Yeah, like in Python, somehow it manages and it handles those errors. Even if you are adding extra numbers at the end, it will not throw any error. Yeah, before I
Add blank space.
like this.
No. When it prints, will it add blank space for the slots extra, or
Like space like this.
in the actual, when it actually prints it, will there be space because you've split this?
Okay, but I don't think it will print the spaces. Let me run it so that it makes more sense. Whether it prints blank spaces or just the. Not sure it's printing anything. Okay. Similarly, slicing this list is similar to the slicing the string. So if you'd like to slice a list, we have a colon, starting index and ending index. Starting index is inclusive, ending index is not, but I'm not sure if we have an error in list. No. I wasn't sure. I haven't tried it. I tried for this string. So 1 to 5 is like from 1 to 4. So this is the first second index, 0, not the 0th, first one. 1, 2, third, and fourth. Fifth is not included. Okay. Now, as a string, I told you it is immutable. That means you cannot modify a string, but a list is mutable. You can modify a list. That means you can add anything to the list. You can delete anything from the list. You can assign or like update something. For example, here is my fifth index. So what's the first index? This number, right? Instead of first index, I would like to assign some other values like I don't know the ID, right? So now I have the ID and I'm replacing it and try to make sure whether it is mutable or immutable. So it updates the first index to I don't know. That means it is mutable. We can easily update a list, but if it is a string, we cannot. So for the John, if I'm writing instead of John, it is like Vaughn. We'll have an error. It's because string is immutable, but list is not. Now I told you in the string class, though string is immutable, but there are some ways that we can modify a string. That means we need to convert the string to a temporary data structure, maybe a list. So what I can do, we can convert a string to a list, modify it as because list is mutable, then convert it back to a string, right? So there are various ways. One of the ways is like you mentioned, split. Split actually splitting data structure based on the delimiter, right? Another way is like you can easily convert a string to a list using the list function. Then modify it, and then you need to convert a string to a list. But unfortunately, you cannot convert a list to a string with the str function. You need to use a different function, like join function. Okay, but I'll discuss those things later. The first thing first, what's in the list? So list is a sequence looping through the list. Lists are mutable, list slicing. Now list operations. What are the common operations? Like the concatenation. In a string, we can easily concatenate two strings, which will create a new one. Similarly, in a list, we can concatenate two strings, two lists. So this is the T1, this is the T2. If you're adding T1 plus T2, it will concatenate to a new list. Repetition, we can easily use the multiplication sign to repeat those numbers in a list. So let me do some exercise. So here's my T1, 1, 2, and here's my T2, 3, 4, and I'm printing T1 plus T2. It will create a new list with all of those items. If I'm adding T1 multiply 4, it will not multiplying the number, but multiplying the items, multiplying the whole list. So for our T1, it is 1, 2. If I'm going to multiply by 4, it is not multiplying with each number. So it is not like the 4 and 8. We are just multiplying the whole list 1 to 4 times. That's what it did. Now, if I ask you, what is the output of this one? Is it 4H or this? It is very easy to misconception of this one, right? List with 4 is like, well, I'm going to multiply by 4. But not this way. How we can do that? Through a loop, so that we can access each item. And then we're multiplying with those numbers, and then we can create another list. But well, I'll discuss those things after the method discussion. What are the methods? Deletion. As I told you, list is mutable, so we can easily update it, insert it, delete it. So for the deletion, we can use the del keyword and then the list with the index. If you write the del whole list, it will delete the whole list. So let me print it. So I'm going to print, I have only one T1, then del T1, print T1. So the first one is I'm going to delete one particular index. In that case, I have a new T1 which has only one item, 2, not the first one. Now, if I'm not specifying the index, it will delete the whole list. Now, after this deletion, I'm going to print this one, T1. Do you have an error or what? Do you have an error? How many of you think it's an error? No error? What could be the possible output? If it is not error, what's the possible output? Nothing?
It's an empty list.
Just an empty list. Somehow it's an error. It's because you are deleting the whole variable things, right? There's a holder, but you're just deleting that holder. But yeah, in the dictionary, it creates an empty dictionary somehow. It's a different thing, dictionary and list. But you are right for the dictionary. Okay. Okay, so these are the deletion. Now, built-in function for list of numbers, like if I have a list of numbers only, then I can use some built-in functions. For example, like sum, len we have already used, which will count the element. That can also be used for any type of data in a list. If it is not a number, it can be used, like len function can be used over that list. But solely for the numbers of list, the sum function can sum up all of those numbers. So for example, this is my number list. I'm going to print the len of the numbers, which will give you the list of the number of the items, but not necessarily it has to be a numeric number. If it is a string value or a Boolean value, it is also counting the number of the list. But for the sum function or the other function, it should have to be the exact numerical value. The sum function actually sum up all of those numbers. So 47295, what's the number? 11, 13, 14, 27. This is sum of the numbers, right? You can also use some other function like min. which will give you the minimum of a list. What's the minimum number here? 2. Same thing for the max. It'll give you the 9. But those functions can only be applicable if the items are only numeric values.
We give an error if they're not.
Let me try. It's an error. Not necessarily it should be an error. It can be different, but the answer is error. That's because it cannot match with a numeric value with a non-numeric value. But I guess if all of them are string, that can work.
Does that just compare the lengths or does it? compare
Length.
the- Okay.
No, like just comparison operator. Do you remember the comparison operator is greater than is less than? It checks this way.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So ABD and ACD are two different things. So let me try. ASD and ASC. Max will be ASD and the mean will be ASC. Checks character by character. But if it's like a heterogeneous data, no. It will not work. I haven't tried with the Boolean data. Let me try. True and false is the maximum. So yeah, true is 1, false is 0. Based on 1 and 0, you just count mean and max. Okay. Now with the combination of different functions, we can do some other calculation like average. How we can calculate the average of something of a list. If we have the summation of all numbers and if we know how many items are there, we can easily divide by the summation. So by sum and len, we can easily get the average. It's like a one line of code for calculating the average, but there is no built-in average function. Okay. Any question about the built-in list function that are only be applicable for list of numbers? No? So list and strings. So the main difference is like mutability. String is immutable, list is not. Like mutable actually, not mutable, not that. It's like mutable, like not immutable. So we can easily convert a string to a list by using the list function, but the other way is not true. So we need to split it. So split is a built-in function, not built-in function. It's like string method. It's because we're writing s.split. That means it is like a string type of method, split. And what it does, well, if you don't know, search split function or string. You need to know the syntax first. The split, string.split, separator, and the max split. What's a separator? It's an optional. By default, the white space is a separator. So if you're not putting anything, it will put the white space there. And if you put something like comma, it will separate by the comma. Okay. And it returns what? Method splits string into a list. That means it returns a list. Whatever it returns, it's a list, not a string. So if we're putting here by nothing, then it will print a list of words, not the numbers, right? Like not the characters, it's the words. From the word, you need to find out the characters. Okay. Okay, so here's an example of different delimiter. If it is like hyphen, it will separate this string by hyphen. And from a list to a string, the function is like join. So join function join multiple lists into a string. So this will return a full string of the whole word. Pinning for a forge. And I think for by default, join function joins by the space. So that's why you have a space here. Pinning space for space. Then these things. So yeah, I'm sorry. So initially we have put the delimiter as a space. So if it is a hyphen, then it will join by hyphen. If it is like a nothing, then it will all together. So yeah, instead of a delimiter, you can just write a string here, space. Space is the delimiter dot join. You don't need to write this line. Or like more not convenient, this one actually. More Pythonic code can be like this. Just one line of code. You are going to join that particular list by space and then it prints function composition and everything all together. But as of now, it is really tough for you to understand what's going on here. So I think this is the better option. Specify the delimiter. Then I have a list. Then use the join function with this delimiter. And finally, you have the output, print that output. That makes more sense, right? Okay, so before discussing the objects and values, I'll be discussing those things later in next class, but I would like to discuss list methods today. And as I told you, an empty list, like nothing in the list, can be defined by nothing in square bracket. So if you're writing A equal to square bracket, that means A is a list with nothing there. How we can write an empty string?
Just the quote.
Just the codes, single quote or double quote. In the list, it is like empty list. So if it is an empty string, we cannot modify it, right? It's because string is immutable. But if it is an empty list, we can modify it. We can expand it. That means there are a lot of string list methods. With those list methods, we can easily expand it. What are those methods? One of the important method is like append. This append method append at the end of the list. So right now there is nothing. That means it just append one item. If we have anything, like 3 items here, can we append to that list? So append can be applied in an empty list is because there's nothing there. But what if I have something in a list? Can we append to that list? Yes, we can. It's because list is mutable.
Let's just add it to the.
But where? At the beginning, at the middle, at the end. At the end. So this is how the list data structure works. It will append at the end. But there are some other methods which can add at the starting point. That's the different things, not the built-in things. So append. So if I'm going to write a dot append, and what should be in the append? The item. What I'm going to append. If I'm append 10, it will add 10 at the end of 3. The next append. 5. What will be our list size then? 1, 2, 3. After this 10, it will have 10 and then 5. Good. Then how we can delete an item? That
Here, here, here.
like, do you know the function name, like the method name? So the method name is pop. Just popping up from a list. I told you about the stacking things before, right? It just like in stack. So first 1, then 2, then 3, then 10, then 5. When you're popping from the top, not from the bottom, right? But there are some function called like remove, which can remove an item. The remove and pop can work similarly, but the difference is by default, pop returns the top one, the last one. But the remove, you need to specify the index. Well, I would like to remove that particular item. I would like to remove the first item. I would remove the last item. That's the difference between pop and remove. Okay. I think I have something here for the pop and remove. So there's the list of methods that we often use. Append, appending, item at the end, pop. So optional parameter, like you don't need to add anything in the pop function or method. By default, it pops the last one. But if you put something there, that means you're specifying the index. You're specifying like, well, I would like to pop that particular item. If you're putting pop 0, it will pop from the top bottom. Otherwise, it will pop from the top. Insert and remove are similar type of function compared to append and pop. Append is like appending at the end. Insert is like you need to specify where you need to insert. You need to, I have like 1 to 5. You'd like to insert an item in between 2 to 5. You need to specify, well, you need to insert at this particular index. And what is the value? Well, this value. That means the insert function requires 2 things, index and the value. But the append only requires the value. Same thing for the remove. For the pop, it just popped from the last one. But the remove, you need to specify which item you need to remove. The pop function removes an item by its index. Whenever you are writing pop 0, it is not popping 0 value. It is popping the value they are putting at the 0th index. But for the remove, it just removed by the value. If you remove 0, it looks for the 0th value, like whatever the value is 0, it removes that value. Make sense? Okay, so I would like to go through the difference between the pop and remove function. Pop removes an element, remove also removes an element, but the difference is it is based on an index. By default, it removes the last one. If you're putting 0, it removes the first one, but remove based on the value. And whenever you're calling the pop function, it returns the removed value. But remove function doesn't return anything. You see what's the difference between those 2 functions at the very end? When you call the pop function, it gives you the popped value. But when you call the remove function, it doesn't give you the removed one. It just remove, like delete. That's all. Sometimes, whenever you are working any project, you're going to remove something, but for example, you're going to remove my email address from my email list. And then later, like at the end of the process, you need to send me an email. Like, well, I already have removed you. That means whenever you are removing me, you have to have my email address. If you use the remove function, then probably you're not getting my email address. If you're using the pop function, after popping it, it returns the popped one. Like, well, I popped this one. Then with that value, you can just send me an email like, well, I already have removed you. from the list. So let me go through with an example so that it makes more sense. For an example, like T, I'm writing pop, and then print whatever I'm popping. And then another one, I'm removing like A. If I'm going to print those two things, for the first one, it will print the popped one. So last one is C, it will print C. For the remove, it just removed A, and then what it will print? The remove function doesn't return anything. What it will print?
Done.
None, right? It's because none is the default thing in Python. So even if there is nothing, that means none type. That means with the remove, you don't have the A. But here with the pop, I'm not sure what it popped. That's why I need to know what it popped. Now, if you're putting here like an index, like, well, remove 1, it means it will pop B.
Oh.
But I already have A there. But if I'm going to write 0, what happened? With the 0, initially I popped A. Then again I'm calling remove A. What happened? Error here, right? It's because A is not there. Previously I already popped it. Make sense? And for the insert, I told you for the insert, for the append, it's just adding at the end. But for the insert, you need to put specific index and the value. Like I would like to insert an item in between B to Z. So what I need to do, T dot insert, specify the index. Well, when you don't know what is the syntax of this particular function, just search for this one. Like list insert Python, for example. It will give you some details like insert method pops an element. What's the pops required? A number specifying in which position to insert the value. Element is required an element to add to that particular position. So those are the important like important parameter. So now I would like to insert C for an example. It is the second parameter. The first parameter is position. At which position? So this is the 0th position. This is the 1st position. This is the 2nd position. I need to insert in between B to Z. I need to push Z and put that value there, right? That means it should be 2. If I'm going to print T after that, probably it will print A, B, C, G. But the append, if you're writing append, it will add C at the very end after Z. Okay. Okay. Let me go through some other methods. So count function is similar to the len function, but it will count how many items are there. For example, I have like 1, 2, 2, 3. How many 2s are there? 2 2s. So it will count by the element. If there are like multiple John Doe in a list, that will count how many John Doe in the list. So it will count by the element. It can be a number, it can be a string, it can be anything. What if I don't have any occurrence there? Like if there is no John Doe in a list and I'm putting like count John Doe, what will print? -1 or 0? Which make more sense? 0, right? There's nothing there. it will print 0 instead of -1. But instead of like whenever we are searching for an item, like whether this particular item is there, then it will print -1. But we're not searching an item. That's a search operation. Search and find. For the search, it returns -1. Search 0 means we have one item at the 0th index, as because it returns an index. But the count function returns the count of particular things. Index function returns the index of particular item, but always the first one. If there's like multiple John Doe, it will give you the index of first John Doe. What if multiple John Doe? So let me go through the index function. Index. What is the parameter? Element, start, and end. Element is required, start and end are not. It means if you'd like to find multiple John Doe, you need to write the starting index after the first occurrence of first John Doe. What you have done for the find operation, right? To find multiple items, we need to use, so by default, it start finding from the 0, right? If you're not putting any index, it start searching from 0. If you're putting something, it will start searching from there. So finding multiple items in a string, we will find the first one, then increment the index so that I have a new index, it will search from there. Same thing for the index function in the list, it will search an item. So if there are like multiple items, you need to go through the first item first. What is the index of first item? Maybe 3. Then it will count, not count, it will search from index 3. So in the index function, then the starting point should be 4 or 3. 3 is the maybe the first item, it increment by 1. So from 4 to all the way. But the good thing is like in the index function, you can specify the end position as well. But for the find, it doesn't have any end position. It starts from that particular index to the end of the string. But for the index function, you can specify the ending point. I would like to search from there to there. Now sorting. Sorting is an important thing in computer science. Sometimes you need to sort an item. Sort an item means like sort a list of items, like a list. Either like ascending order or descending order. To sort, maybe in the higher class, for example, 2420 data structure class, you will learn different types of sorting, but I'm not going to different types of sorting right now. By default, Python use some built-in sorting function, which is called like SORT sort, which will give you the sorted list of items, like sorted item of the list. And you can specify whether it's ascending way or descending way by tweaking the parameter. Again, the sort function in Python has these parameters, and both are optional. So the reverse, true or false. That means reverse means like I'm going to use it ascending way or descending way. And default reverse is false. This is the default parameter here. We have used default parameter, right? So by default, in that particular function, what they have written, the default parameter is false for the reverse parameter. Now, if you'd like to reverse false means like it is the ascending order. If you like to sort it in a descending way, then you have to put it true. Reverse is true. So that it will sort the list of the item in a descending way. Key is not required for this function specified sorting criteria, but we'll be using key in a lambda function we'll be discussing, but not right now. Just keep in mind, reverse will return, like reversing the list. Now there are various ways to use a descending order. one way, sort a list in ascending way, and there is a function called like reverse, which will reverse the array or list. This is the one way. The other way is use the reverse keyword to true in a sort function, which will automatically give you a list, sorted list with reverse. So first, this is my list L1. I have number 1, 100, 50, 60, 23, 56. This is the list. If I'm going to write L1.sort, it will give you a sorted list from 1 to 100. Now, this is the ascending way. If I'm going to use a descending way, I could either just reverse this list. This is a function called like reverse. It's just reverse, or we can just use reverse is true. It will do the same thing. So either way. Okay. Okay. Now there's some issues here. Here's my list L1, maybe a list of students' grades. I would like to know how many students got A. That's why I have used the sort function. But now if I'm going to find the original list, since I need to map with that particular grade to that particular student, I cannot find the original list. It just modified the list, original list. You can see here, I'm writing L1.sort. I haven't assigned these particular sorting things to anything. It is like inbuilt. That means I lost my original list. Is there any way that I can find the original one?
Again.
Start it again. Yeah, that's the naive way. Other way is like I can assign another variable and then use that variable to sort. This is like my original. And this is like my duplicate one. I'm doing some operation in the duplicate one, but keep original as it is. This is the one way. The other way is there is a function called like sorted. Sort and sorted. Sort is a list method, but sorted is a built-in method. That means L1.sort. This is the syntax, right? My list and then dot sort. But sorted, I just put the L1 here inside the function. So this is the built-in one. So for the built-in, I don't need to use the dot before the function name, just like a len function, just like a print function, sum function, mean function, max function, right? But for this one, dot sort, that means it is a particular type of method for this particular data type. What data type? L1. L1 is what? A list type of. And again, just like our string, how do you know what are the list methods? First thing is like remember everything. Second thing is like write it down to your notebook. Third is like you can search online. What if you don't have any of those accesses?
Define.
Define. Yeah, very close. dir. Directory of L1. You'll have all of the particular type of methods. You'll give all of the methods for list. You can see here index, insert, pop, remove, reverse, sort, count, copy, extend, and a lot more things. Okay. Now, if I'm going to here, sort it, so you can see here, particular string, particular list type of method doesn't return anything. It's because it modified that particular list. So L1.sort, it is not returning anything. Let me print it, and you'll see none. You'll see none. That means it is not returning anything. It is changing the original array or list. But the sorted function returns a new one. If you're writing L1, that means you're overwriting the original one. If you're writing another variable, that means you're keeping L1 as it is, and you have a new one, sorted one. So I can write here like print L1. It is not sorted, my original one. I can write here something like original, and then this is like my sorted. I have like both arrays here, both lists here. I'm not losing my original list. So depending on the scenario, you need to use sort or sorted. Does it make sense? So before using any function, make sure you know whether it changed the original one. It is very important in programming interviews. Some of the interviewer are asking like, you are not supposed to modify the original list. That means they are, so you can use the dot sort function, but they're expecting sorted function to solve this problem. Both are working same, but not they're expecting. Does that make sense? Any question at this point? Okay. So for the next class, I'll be starting